Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Colin. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us again this year for the second annual MCRRC featuring series for Black History Month. We are in for a treat. We have nationally acclaimed coach Desmond Dunham that will be with us today, and he will be introduced by Sylvie Okwesi Bello, and then the conversation will be moderated by Kelly. A couple of housekeeping items. Please be mindful that this event is being recorded. Consequently, your video and audio will be turned off. Please ensure that your screen name reflect how you like to be identified. And we will have a Q&A session at the end. And if and when you have a question, please use the Q&A feature to submit your question anytime. And if time permits, some might come out of mute to raise their hand to speak, to ask the question directly. And otherwise, use the chat feature for any comment you might have during the event. Please do not use the chat feature for question. You either put it in the Q&A, or maybe when time permits, you can raise your hand at the end. And then obviously, depending on the number of questions, we might not have the time to answer all of them, but we are hoping that Coach Desmond will be gracious enough to answer as much as possible. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Sylvie Bello to introduce Coach Desmond.
Thank you so much, Jean. And hi, everyone. I'm Sylvie Bello, and I'm a new member actually, well, newish, of the Montgomery County Roadrunners Club. And I am from Cameroon, and really excited that Jean, who is also a fellow Cameroonian and a member of the club, provided the introduction. So for Black History Month, welcome to our second annual Black History Month event. And for this event, the Inclusion and Equity Committee, which Jean and I are members, and as well as our moderator today, Kellen, is also a member of the Inclusion Equity Committee. It just makes sense given the history of our country, right? And the history of running that our club, the Montgomery County Roadrunners Club, has an Inclusion and Equity Committee. I'm sure you've noticed that all across the country, more and more sporting spaces, even more specifically running spaces, have taken a closer look on access, on visibility, on and actually barriers, right? Erasure within running, right? All the way from our ancestors who were stolen from Africa, including Cameroon, and sold to the Americas, and what we know as runaway enslaved people, to present day, right? With our fellow runner out in Georgia, Ahmaud Arbery, right? Many of you participated, supported, ran with the hashtag Run with Ahmaud. So you know that Black bodies, right? Be it 500 years ago or present day, just running in these Black bodies is dangerous. And that is why personally, and with the Inclusion and Equity Committee, very, very, very excited that our club, right, is leading on inclusion and equity, during Black History Month, right, as well as all of the barriers and challenges for minority groups. And because this is the Montgomery County Roadrunners, I'm just going to go ahead and say that right here in Montgomery County, we face a lot of the same and even similar issues as Ahmaud Arbery did, right? There are at least 5 open cases with Montgomery Police Department on murders. They were committed by the police department. There are all kinds of different barriers to entry into running, even though we may see a lot of like track and field. But last year, I just want to go over, and I don't know if one of our INE committee or our committee chair can post in the chat from last year. I'm just going to review some of the themes that came out of our first annual Black History Month panel. We had our past president, Jean Arthur, a Black woman. Last year was women run, and it was hashtag Black Girls Run, and so our club has had a past president who's African American, Jean Arthur, and she graced us as a panelist last year. We also had a fellow club member, Catherine Walters, who is actually like a second generation at the club. Her mom, Wanda Walters, is a beloved coach here at the club. And we had, because, the club is making a lot of strides in connecting with other Black organizations. And the club did reach out, and we're so thrilled last year to have Black Girls Run CEO, Janelle Alexander, who is sort of kind of local. She's out in Richmond, Virginia. And I was the moderator for last year. And some of the themes that came out of last year included Black runners facing, just police brutality, Black runners facing other kinds of brutality from everyday people, like Ahmaud Arbery, Black runners facing different kinds of expenditures and barriers to entry into running, right? And also that even though more Black runners are connected to shorter distance, but endurance running really has been has been sort of a challenge for Black runners, being from Africa, being an African immigrant, and also in my personal life, professional life, being an African immigrant activist. We do know a lot of Kenyans, a lot of Ethiopians, men and women who have who thrive in running. Today, we are so excited that Coach Desmond is with us. We cannot wait to hear about his book, and we would like for you to look up the hashtag Running While Black to support accessibility for Black bodies running, to support policies that encourage diversity in running, and specifically to erase anti-Blackness in running. Thank you. And with that, I would like to pass it on to our tonight's moderator, and he's very qualified for moderating this Black History Month, because he has, for those of you who are a year earlier, you could, a year that Kellen has reviewed Coach Desmond's book. So we just cannot wait for this exciting conversation. We hope you will join us, and we hope that you would know that the Montgomery County Roadrunners is making lots and lots of improvements, right? I mean, if you're going to be the 5th largest or so running club in America, you should take the lead on Black runners, right? And they're making lots and lots of progress, and we hope you will hold us accountable so we can keep doing that. So thank you, everybody. And Kellen, take it away. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sylvie. That was fantastic and all really well said. And just a reminder, there is that link to last year's panel, which was moderated by Sylvie. And so, Yvette, do you mind unsharing? There we go. Coach Dunham, thanks so much for being here. I guess we've talked before, like Sylvie mentioned, I actually got the chance to write and write about your book, read your book, write about your book I'm the sports editor at Washington City paper. And so we got to chat a little bit. I feel like I'm taking up hours of your time each time, but it's
all good for great reasons.
And I'm sure some people in this chat today, in this event today, probably know you because you've been around for so long in terms of the running community. But you recently published a memoir called "Running Against the Odds." I have right here.
Yeah.
You're wearing the shirt, and so I think this is how I started our last discussion. But what made you feel? What motivated you? What prompted you to share your story, to write this book?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, Kellen, I just want to say thank you all for having me. Thank you for all that you do, Yvette, the Montgomery County Road Runners Club. I mean, I had to take a second look at the email to make sure I had the right organization. And so for you all to be paving the way in this space is just incredible work. And I just truly commend you on that. And I really hope that this catches on like a wildfire to some of your other sports organizations as well. And I love how you just have owned the fact that you're one of the largest in the country and that you should be out there paving the way for others. So thank you very much for that. And so back to your question, Kellen. So I just, what the reason I wrote this book, running has just played such an instrumental role in my life. And I just fondly remember sharing my stories with my athletes over the past 2 decades. And they really appreciate it. They framed it Gary Tales because I'm from Gary, Indiana, and I always had stories about my upbringing and my childhood, and they would hear a lot of the adversity that I had in my life. And through that adversity, it was very inspiring for them to understand that I'm standing in front of them to this day, overcoming tremendous odds from time to time. And it wasn't about the stories where I garnered a medal or a trophy. It was the stories where I was in the trenches and dealing with challenges in everyday life. And eventually one of my athletes was inspired by one of my stories, and she stuck around after we finished our little team huddle, and she said to me, you need to write a book. And this was about a little bit over 10 years ago. And it resonated with me a lot later from what she was saying. She was saying that other people need to hear your story. Other people need to be inspired. We all can appreciate that. And so I would say about 7 or 8 years ago, I was riding with my wife, coming from a family reunion, pretty nostalgic event for me. And I told her, I want to cement my legacy, and I want to make sure that I'm making someone else's life better. And when the pandemic hit, this became my pandemic project. And I thought it was going to take me 6 to 8 months. It took me about 18 months. And so here we are with now Running Against the Odds is on the shelves. And I'm super excited to try to inspire others through my journey.
That's awesome. And yeah, anyone who hasn't checked out the book, one of the reasons I wanted to, or I think some of these events are important because everyone has a story, right? And you get to share your journey, and everyone has a different kind of origin story into running. And so you obviously talk a lot about your origin story into running, which I think is pretty interesting. So, running wasn't your first choice.
Not at all.
Your first.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it took me getting cut from 3 other school teams first. Yeah.
And one of them was cross country. You were cut from your middle school cross country team. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was cut from my elementary basketball team, my middle school basketball team, and then my middle school cross country team. You talk about being dejected. and so the only reason I went out for my high school cross country team was because I was told that I had to do football or run cross country in order to try out for basketball. And I knew I was the next Michael Jordan. The coaches didn't think so. I just begrudgingly went out for cross country once again. And at that point, I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. And I really didn't expect the response that I had received when I went out for the cross country team. I instantly felt the brotherhood. I felt the support. I felt like this could be an extension of my very own family. And, you know, I never knew the other benefits I was getting from being a part of that atmosphere. As I mentioned before, I dealt with some other challenges and obstacles at a very early age. I dealt with a speech impediment. So, you know, I wasn't the cool kid getting by getting pulled out of class for therapy. I also dealt with dyslexia and still have dyslexia. So that has something to do with this book being 18 months. And but I also dealt with a dad who is a Vietnam veteran, and he was responsible for pulling wounded and dead soldiers off the battlefields. And he, you know, greatly suffered from that mentally. There was no, you know, mental health therapy when he returned home, and he suffered, and my family, we suffered as a result of that as well. PTSD, no doubt about it. He also became dependent on alcohol, became an alcoholic and pretty abusive. And so, you know, where most people found a home as that safe haven, that was far from the case with my very own home. And then not to mention, I'm from Gary, Indiana, in which that was the homicide capital of the US during the time that I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. And so we were dealing with a lot. You know, gangs were rampant, and the steel industry started to diminish, you know, greatly. And anytime, you know, your industry starts to plummet, then everything else goes in the opposite direction in terms of, you know, employment started to go up. The crime rate started to go up. So, and we were just dealing with a lot around us. And it was running that community that really provided me the love, the brotherhood. You know, I didn't know the science behind it yet, but the serotonin that you get from it, the adrenaline, the endorphins. So I can honestly say that running was countering a lot of the stress that I was dealing with on a daily basis. And I know those things now, but I just knew that it was something that was peeling off layers of stress for me when I was just dealing with a lot of things that most kids shouldn't have to deal with and not have support for.
Yeah, and you cover a lot of that in the book, of all the things that you went through in your childhood and the role that running played. And so, you know, and it continues to play a large role. You've been how long have you been a coach?
25 years.
A coach for 25 years for various different schools. You know, we were just talking for those early arrivers. Desmond St. John's College High School team just won the WCAC title in both the boys and girls, correct?
Yes, correct.
Congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's such a where does your where does your passion for youth sports come from? Is it what is it about youth running and sharing that passion that you have when you're younger? What's important for you?
Yeah, so I mean, the passion I have is that, and I don't think it necessarily has to be running. I do think there's something special about distance running that, again, the biochemical responses that you get. And I've even as an adult, I've been through some things that, I mean, we like to duck and dodge stress, adversity, but I mean, it's impossible, especially living in the US. And I want to say that it has just always been my go-to. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with running. And at one point in time, I was running over 100 miles a week when I was competing on a collegiate level. I ended up garnering a scholarship to Howard University. I ran from 800 meters all the way to 10K. And I was about 138 when I first 138 pounds when I first went to Howard University, but I wanted to be one of the best, and so I was super dedicated. I was super dedicated to what running had done for me, and I want to return the favor. I want to return the favor to other younger runners, knowing that if they have that foundation, that distance running can make you such a better person, and it really affects your daily output when you do it the proper way. And so I always think about that foundation of being that middle long distance runner, not tipping the scales and making running where it has to be super stressful. And that's my next book, a parent and teachers and coaches guide for successfully teaching younger runners how to enjoy it. There's a lot of sports psychology involved. I use a lot of sports psychology for myself to keep myself motivated. And I always tell my younger athletes that, when I would run 100 plus miles in a week, that I only wanted to run maybe 20 to 30 of those miles. The rest were driven by goals. And that's something that we, even as adults, have to remember, that we have to remind ourselves of our goals on a daily basis, and not think about quitting, but thinking about, why did we start in the first place? Why did we embark on this journey in the first place? And so, yeah, my goal is to make someone else's life better. It's appropriate that we start with our youth and to give them the best opportunity to help change this crazy world and to be the best version of themselves. And so I like to always couple running with life. And I just think running is such a microcosm of life.
For sure. A lot of sports running metaphors. And just a reminder to all the attendees. Sorry, here, I guess that's feedback on my end. But yeah, please feel free to, we encourage you to ask questions on the Q&A, but if you have comments or just thoughts running through your head as coaches talking, feel free to put that in the chat. But if you have questions, please you can put them in the Q&A. We'll get to them in like 15, 20 minutes or so. But yeah, one of the things that I feel was a strong theme, and I know we talked about this before, was you were looking for community. You were looking for community, whether when you were young, growing up in Gary, Indiana, and you were looking for a community when you came to DC for run at Howard University. And so what is the importance of, I guess, let me ask this way. What did you learn about yourself when you came to Howard University as just a person, but also as a runner?
Yeah, so I first and foremost, I learned a lot about myself just as a Black male in America. I'd really have to say that Howard helped to shape and mold me. Gary is a predominantly Black city, but we didn't have the curriculum that supported our connection to our African roots. And if you don't know where you've been, you don't know where you're going. And it's so unfortunate that there is this disconnection. As Sylvie, mentioned earlier, that as a people, we didn't volunteer to come to the US of A. We were forced in many ways, and it would be great to have some type of ownership that, that in our curriculum, that we would have the knowledge, the education, the connection, because again, if you don't know where you've been, it's impossible to have that culture, that strong culture, that sense of knowing who you are. And Howard University, it really taught me who I was as a Black man in America. And in learning that, it made me have so much more appreciation and pride for myself. It also made me have just more appreciation for humanity, and just love for all mankind. And so Howard University was just an amazing experience. It was a challenging experience for me. As I mentioned before, coming from Gary, the educational system was it struggled. And so I had some catching up to do when I got to Howard, but we all know that iron sharpens iron. And I was around a lot of sharp young ladies and young men, and I really had to step up my game. And so Howard provided that knowledge, that culture, that community, and just the stellar academics. I was very fortunate to also be a member of the track and cross country team. And so I just got more of that. And anytime you're a part of a group with a common goal, a common struggle, you develop that common bond. And we all know that running can be a struggle, and you have to stay goal oriented. And that's what I love about, the Montgomery County Road Runners Club, as well as your other clubs that promotes that type of atmosphere, where you have folks who are coming out trying to better themselves, and you have that goal. And running on a daily basis or every other day it's a struggle, and having folks you can lean on, and again, iron sharpens iron. So making sure that you have those positive people around you. I always say that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. And if you put yourself around positive people in a positive atmosphere, and just a positive groups, it's going to transfer into your energy, into your space, and it's going to help you to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And yeah, is that mine? No, yeah, similar to you getting into running, into long distance running, into cross country, which it wasn't your initial choice, or your coaching wasn't your initial life plan at all. That was you were physically in your Isuzu rodeo, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
WI airport to go for your residency, or is it?
No, not yet. So it was for a medical school program, and it was a master's program that you do 1 year and you automatically are admitted to the medical school. So I was with IUPUI, where I did biomedical research. I was published, and my background was science. So I used to be a physical science teacher, physics and chemistry. And so I was on my way to joining this program, and felt that my next 8 to 12 years would be spent in the medical field and medical field. And when I was at Howard, I really got involved in the community, where at the time, she was my soon-to-be wife, where we had a tutorial mentorship program, and we got over 100 volunteers to Howard University volunteers to be a part of this tutorial mentorship program for a local elementary school. And it was a school that was struggling financially. So we helped to fill the void of them not having foreign language as well as music teachers. We ran those departments ourselves. And it was just an overwhelming feeling to be able to see the lives that we were able to touch, to change, the teachers who were appreciative of that. And I think that was my first, step into jumping into the field of education, as well as being in the community. And then a year later, I was asked to be a volunteer coach. I said, sure, I know a little bit about coaching. And I just became so connected again with more kids, the community. And it was just something that was super special that was happening. And as I was on my way to the airport for the registration and orientation for this program back in Indiana, that my rodeo stopped on the ramp. And it had to be, an act of God and an act of the universe, where that gave me a little bit more time to think about things. And I finally picked up the phone, called my mother to tell her about these struggles. And I was shocked with her response. And she said, you need to go wherever your heart lies. But whatever you do, you better be the best at whatever you choose. And from that period on, I made the decision that I was going to continue to teach, coach, now entrepreneur and author. And so I still hold myself to that standard. When she dropped me off at Howard University, when she said, look, this is it for you. You're not coming back home. There are no options for you. So you better make things work. and so I'm just blessed to, I dealt with a lot of things with my dad, but my mother was the person who worked 24-hour shifts for my sister and I, 28-hour shifts, just to make sure that we had everything we needed. And here I am, coach 25 years later.
And you've many different, where have you coached?
You went out for a second.
I said, you've been a coach at many different schools and many different clubs. Where have you coached?
Yes, so I started off in the community with Clark Elementary School, St. Gabriel's Catholic School, and I started a junior Olympic team. So I was coaching 3 teams at one time. And then eventually where I taught physical science at Archbishop Carroll, I coached there as well. And then eventually I wanted to coach all year round. I was only the cross country coach at Carroll. And so I wanted to coach in DC, and for some reason, I couldn't get a coaching job in DC. And I think I had beaten too many coaches with my club team that were also DC coaches. And so I ended up making the commute to Eleanor Roosevelt, 45 to 50 minutes a day. And so I was very fortunate to coach at Eleanor Roosevelt, and I talk a lot about my experience with Eleanor Roosevelt in the third part of my book, where we took on the Jamaican team in front of a crowd of 40,000 spectators. And so after that, I ended up taking a position at the University of Maryland, where I was their head cross-country coach for 4 years. And that, I thought that was the dream job. I thought that was the job that I was going to retire with, but there was this empty place where coaching on a middle high school level, the student athletes are just so much more impressionable. And I realized that was my sweet spot. That was where I really felt like I really made a huge difference. And so then I eventually left University of Maryland, coached at Woodrow Wilson High School for 5 years. And now I am actually in my 5th year at St. John's College High School.
Yeah, so, and then you've been quite successful at each stop. And, like you mentioned, the last third of the book talked about the Penn relays,
Okay.
the amazing Eleanor Roosevelt 4x8 and 4x4. And, you start off as a volunteer, a coach, and I'm doing that right now at Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Well, and those are some fast times. These times are incredible. So what, not to spoil too much of the book, but what was that experience like? And for you at Eleanor Roosevelt to have nationally ranked, runners?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. And I want to say that, my success isn't determined by championships. It's not determined if we win or lose. It's determined where a young person goes 5, 10, 15 years after they leave my program. And so it was just an amazing ride because, I mean, these were just awesome young ladies that I had the opportunity to work with, and seeing them do things today, with their masters and PhDs and having that foundation of being a competitive runner has definitely helped them to to really stretch themselves to being, the best that they can be at all that they do. And so it was a lot of fun. I mean, I'm super competitive, and I always make sure that I do not put my competitive spirit first. And but to add to the bonus to everything, to working with these special young ladies, was the fact that they were super competitive. We were able to travel out to Arcadia, California, and run against one of the top programs in the country, and then to come back at Penn Relays and to toe the line with the dominant Jamaican teams. A journalist, Tim Fulton, said, the only thing certain in life is death and taxes, and you might as well throw in the Jamaicans winning at Penn Relays too. And so we knew that it was a major feat. It was something that after we lost, to them quite a few times, and we knew that, Eleanor Roosevelt had some Olympians, future Olympians that came out in the past, and they never had that type of success. And from that point on, it started to plant seeds to say, hey, wouldn't it be great if you became the first to ever beat the Jamaicans from Eleanor Roosevelt? And wouldn't it be even better if you made US history by beating them twice in the same Penn Relays Carnival? And you could just kind of see the gleam in their eyes, and it took a lot, but they eventually all got on board for the mission to try to accomplish this feat. And it was just the process and the journey was just an amazing ride.
Yeah, that's incredible. And those, again, I thought it was very exciting to read, and just to see those times were just mind-blowing. But talking about that Eleanor Roosevelt team, I want to read a passage from your book, if that's okay.
Of course.
Because, as we, look around with distance running, right? We saw the Olympic marathon trials. There was a New York Times article that came up about just kind of the lack of diversity. And you see that in cross country as well, locally. I saw that when I was helping out with cross country this past fall, but just wanted to read a passage from your book. You wrote, "Our team stood out. Our top runners were Black, and they had me, a Black head coach. It wasn't something you saw off on the cross country courses in Maryland or on a national level during the early 2000s. In running events, culturally and historically, Black runners had not been encouraged to run cross country. Basketball, football, and the short sprints in track and field have provided the most role models for Black kids in the sports. Recreational running is touted as a way of life for white, middle class, and wealthy families. Where I grew up, if you saw someone running in the neighborhood, it wasn't for recreation, and you certainly took the cue and ran too. Ask questions later. As a runner and then as a coach, I took pride in dispelling the stereotypes and disrupting the myths that Black kids can't run long distances." And that's, I think that's incredibly powerful what you wrote. And why do you think, even now, we're not in the early 2000s anymore, we're in the, 2022, and it's still, that's kind of still the case.
Yeah.
Why that is? Cross country as a sport and long distance running, you see on the national level, right? Olympic level. It's just not very homogenous, right? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that it starts with the leadership, and going back to when we first started, the fact that the statement that was made that as the 5th largest, running club in the country, that we have to take some ownership to making a difference and to having an inclusive environment. And so even when I first got to St. John's, we had a homogenous cross-country team, all white cross-country team. We had a homogenous track and field team, all Black. And the first thing I did, hey, this is not going to be the case. It took a year. It took a year for us to get there. And to be honest, we lost some members. We lost some members because it wasn't the same culturally. But fast forward 3 years later, we have set the precedent, not just for our team, but for our school, so that other sports can become more inclusive. We are teaching life lessons. And so it just starts with the leadership. If the leadership is open to making the environment inclusive, and don't get me wrong, I mean, this is by no means, hey, let's hold hands and you know, sing kumbaya. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be, you know, like I said, unfortunately we lost some kids as a result of that, black and white, and but I was prepared to stick with my guns. I was prepared to stick with my guns to say that if we're going to do this, excuse me, that if we're going to do this, we're going to do this the right way, and we're going to have an environment that we can all lean on each other and be a brother and sisterhood that that is reflective of what the world should be. And I always use, just to paraphrase, just a quote that that Gandhi said, that if we want to see change in the world, it starts with the person you see in the mirror. And so we're always preaching that. And you know, when we travel, we do random selection for roommates. We do team activities that where you're going to have random partners. And so they know this, and they now appreciate it. We want to live in this comfort zone, and it's always great to be in this comfort zone with those who look like you, those who have the same background you have. But that's not the humanity that we should be showing one another. The right thing to do, to have love and respect for all mankind, for everyone to have an opportunity for peace, for love, for happiness. It shouldn't just be to those who belong to a certain group or have a certain background or even live in a certain zip code. And we also know that if you're born into certain zip codes of low socioeconomic environments, that your chances to receive the best education, your chances of, you know, I could go on and on, but you know, we put more into our prison system than we do our early educational childhood system. And it's just a bit backwards that it shows that if someone is properly educated from the ground up from age 2, that it can make a world of a difference in terms of what they can produce in society for themselves and others later on in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes work. It takes leadership
Yeah.
to get things done. And that's well said. And yeah, just to, you know, continue, everyone, you know, if you have questions for Coach, continue dropping in the Q&A. We'll read them out loud, but you know, if there's time left, we'll even, if people can raise hands, we'll have them ask like a question directly to you. But I honestly, just for me, just to wrap up, what has been what has been the reaction to your book, whether anything that surprised you or like things that you maybe didn't expect in terms of reaction? What did that young lady who told you to write a book, what did she say? I mean, what
Yeah, it has been, it's been just an amazing feeling, because when I just remember the first young man who approached me to say to me that he could identify with a lot of my stories. He didn't have the same stories, but the way I wrote the book, I mean, it's a lot of relatable stories, and there's a lot of generality to it where everyone goes through challenges, everyone goes through obstacles, and it's a reminder that you're not alone. And you know, I'm really shocked by the Amazon reviews. It was an Amazon #1 new release, and I'm getting a lot of great reviews on Amazon, so that's been pretty exciting. I am working on the adaptation to the book now, so that was something else that I wasn't expecting, but I have been approached by some professional editors and publishers, and so looking to rewrite it now as a young adult fictional and based on a true story. And the goal with this is that we're looking to try to get it on with filming companies. So the goal, I'm not stopping until it's on Netflix, Disney, or the big screen. We definitely feel that it aligns and just teaches so many life lessons for young folks as well as adults. And for even adults to always make sure you're checking in and are you living your best version? Is it time for you to reinvent yourself to maximize who you are, as well as to change someone else's life? And so just a lot of positive responses. And, you saw Steve reading the book and on the bus ride to New York and just getting a text from him. So I've gotten a lot of support. And I've also gotten some folks who didn't show their support too. So it's been just a hodgepodge, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of positive responses.
That's awesome. And we'll get into the Q. Well, first of all, who did you want to play you in the movie?
I think I'll take, Denzel's getting a little older, so I'll take Michael B. Jordan.
That's a good one. He's everywhere. Well, I'll read out some of the Q&A. We got a few questions.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
Everyone continue. If you have more questions, continue putting in the Q&A. And if you want to ask Coach Dunham directly, raise your hand. And if we have time, we have 13 minutes left. We have time after the audio, the Q&A questions. We can do some audio questions. But let's start with, and I think this is from, we both know this person. This is from Coach Bossy.
Oh, hey, yes.
What were some challenges coaching college athletes compared to high school students?
Yeah, so I mean, that's easy. College athletes come in with a fixed mindset. And we all know that that if you want to be successful in life, you want to have that growth mindset. And the species that continue to evolve, the people that continue to evolve are those who are adaptable to change. They are flexible, they are adaptable. And so there was a lot of time spent on a collegiate level trying to reprogram those collegiate athletes who had success on the high school level. And the realization is that their body is different, their physiological makeup is different. Sometimes coaches didn't know what they were doing on the high school level. And because the kid was talented, they still did well. So it was a struggle just with that fixed mindset. And it took roughly about 3 years, and we started to turn a major corner. But that also let me know that I want to be around that more of that growth mindset and that more impressionable age. And so, yeah, fixed mindset, no doubt about it.
All right. And everyone, we have a
good to see you. Well, good to have you, Coach.
good to see you. And then, so anyone who has more questions, it can be about anything. About we have a lot of several coaches in the club, whether it's PACE coaches, whether like Coach Bossy, high school coach. So if you have any coaching questions for Coach Dunham, please enter in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll try to get to them. And okay, so this is a perfect segue into that. What advice would you give someone who accepts the challenge to be a coach to a new group, such as a walking or a pacing coach? So a more coach toward, I guess, a more beginner group. Yeah.
So I would say a couple of things. One, spend the time to develop the relationship. And two, that because a person, they're willing to buy in more when they know that you care about them as a person as well as their goals. And then I would say inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is too hard. You're looking to make physiological gains and mental gains, and those are things that just do not happen overnight. You got to be willing to play chess and not checkers. It's not about what a person garners in 3 weeks or 3 months. As a coach, you're looking to make running a lifestyle. And so it's something that you don't have to do overnight. It's not something you have to rush to do. And so easing that person into that training regimen is so key, because it's going to be where that new runner is going to feel accomplished, and you're kind of just ramping them up in a progressive manner so that they can appreciate the running, or, you know, I'm not sure if there's a combination of walking or power walking or anything, but it's all about making sure that everything is progressive so that it's not too much of a strain and stress mentally, physically, and physiologically, so that that person can continue to make it a happy place for them.
Awesome. And, another question for Leslie Jane. It's I guess a little more general question. How do you advise runners when or as they experience pain, and in parentheses, knees, severe leg cramps, side stitch, etc.?
Yeah.
That's a pretty general question.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, just back off or tone down the intensity a bit, that to make sure that you're not creating additional injuries. And I mean, there's just no fun running in pain on a consistent basis. Now, running, you're going to get dinged up a bit, and some days you're going to maybe have a cramp or two that you're going to work through. But if it's something that you're consistently feeling, then something has to change. And so I would always say that look to modify what you're doing if it's something that you're consistently feeling. And if that modification doesn't work, then you pretty much need to look at a different training program. And so there's always more than one way that you can accomplish your goals. And so I'm kind of talking in general because I don't know exactly where you are with your training, but training through an injury or the same type of pain on a daily basis, something needs to be altered in that training regimen. And so if you ever want to talk more specifically about that, you can, they're going to share my contact information towards the end of this. I would be happy to help you to figure those things out.
And this is a follow-up from Leslie that just came in. What exercises or sport do you suggest to supplement running?
So I think that one of the best that you can do is aqua running, jogging with the aqua belt. It's going to give you the resistance. It's also going to give you, I mean, I honestly have had runners to become injured and would follow an aqua jogging running program. That's the great thing. You can find a lot of these programs online. And then they would come back out 2, 3, 4 weeks later, and they would actually run a lot better than previous. It's obvious that when you become injured, something is weak or imbalanced or something is off. And the resistance of the pool gives you the exact same motion that you're going to have when you run. So it's very transferable in the pool as well as out of the pool. You will struggle the first few sessions unless you have a previous swimming background. And so that is first and foremost. If you don't have access to a pool, then I would say, you know, an elliptical machine that also have the arm swings as well is also pretty great. And they don't have these around as much, but you also have the Nordic track skier. The number one sport to develop your aerobic system is cross-country skiing. So if you can get anything that closely resembles that, and they try to do that pretty closely with the elliptical, that's going to be super beneficial as well.
Perfect. And then, yeah, we have like 5 to 10 minutes left. Is that okay? Does that work?
I'm fine. I'm enjoying this. Yeah.
Only has 2 questions. I want to make sure I get those in. And the first one, I think you kind of addressed in the book, actually, is she asks, who are your favorite Black runners who have inspired or inspire you?
Wow. I mean, what goes without saying, I mean, Jesse Owens, who, you know, initially paved the way for a lot of us. what's another? Um, I'll stick with Jesse Owens for now. I'll come back. I got so many running through my head, but that's first and foremost.
Well, I was going to say, both your coaches in high school and college are Black coaches, correct?
Correct. Yes. And so, okay, so I missed, I thought she was saying runners in the past. So yeah, but both of my high school coaches. I also ran with a guy who he was my teammate. I mean, this is probably one of the most inspiring runners that I had ever had the opportunity to toe the line with. And he was on my team, which made it even better. But he was without housing. Growing up, he was homeless. Both of his parents were addicted to drugs, and somehow he ended up becoming a Foot Locker. Well, at the time it was called Kenny, but he became a Foot Locker finalist. And so, here it was. We're in little old Gary, Indiana, predominantly Black school, predominantly Black team, and we had one of the top teams in the country. And he went on to become one of the top distance runners in the country. He now owns his own business, Redefined Fitness, in Evanston, Illinois. I mean, doing extremely well. And so he's always been just a major inspiration for me. And he was even a year younger than me in school. So, but seeing that, I used to think, okay, I really don't have problems. This guy is getting it done out here on a daily basis. But we made cross country and distance running sexy in Gary, running through the streets of a steel town.
I'm sure that wasn't easy.
Oh, man, not at all.
And then Sylvie's next second question is, I guess, what specific actions or policies do you think runners can or should take during Black History Month?
I think that it's just really to be honest with you, I hate to say that it should go beyond Black History Month, to be honest. And I mean, just our on a daily basis, we should all ask ourselves, what can we do to make someone else's life better? And whether that's, a local neighbor or someone in your organization. I mean, to build any relationship and to help someone, you have to be willing to go out of your way. And it is natural for the human body to always want to stay at this homeostasis, to be comfortable, for things to be convenient. So you have to intentionally do things to get out of that comfort zone, to help others. And I think that it's super important that we all look in the mirror and we ask ourselves, what did I do today to help someone else, to make someone else's life better, even when we're going through some tough times? And I know I've been through some tough times where when I've helped someone else, for some reason, that gives me just such a positive response and helps me to even feel better.
It was beyond. Sure. So we have 3 questions left. We're gonna get through those 3.
Okay.
So 2 kind of a little bit more on the mental health side. So I think another one from Coach Bossy is, how do you help students who have anxiety about racing more than, in parentheses, more than the usual jitters?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Bossy, this is another epidemic that we're dealing with as coaches, especially with young runners. Now it is more rampant than ever that I'm having runners that are dealing with anxiety and stress. And so the one thing is that, I mean, first I try to determine if they are going to need more professional help. So I will never, ever hesitate to push a kid towards their counselor and any other resources that a school may have that can be a part of this team. And then the second thing is I try to make it a situation where they feel that they have the control over their experience overall. Unfortunately, in society, we put a lot of stress on ourselves and others, where we make it about winning and losing. I rarely talk about winning in my program. I think winning is a byproduct of doing everything else properly. So we focus a lot on effort. We focus a lot on attempting to execute a strategy, and merely using our competitors to pull us to our best performance that we can garner for that day. So I try to take away the things that they have no control over. We really don't even focus a lot on time per se, because if you give the effort, you follow the strategy, you have control over those things. As a byproduct, you get the times. As a byproduct, you get the place. And if your team is great enough, good enough, work hard enough, they'll also garner the results in terms of the placement as an individual and as a team. So I try to just take that layer of stress off, because I'm finding a lot of really wired young athletes that are thinking that it's all about winning, losing. I don't want to let such and such down. So I also know that we deal with some parents that are also creating that additional layer of stress. And so if I need to, I'll have that discussion with that parent, and not to have any friction with that parent, but it's more so that let's work together as a team, because at the end of the day, most parents want what's best for their kid. And sometimes parents think that they're helping, and they're creating that extra layer of stress as well.
That was really helpful. Yeah, I know we're going a little over time, so I appreciate everyone who's staying. I definitely appreciate Coach Dunham, who's giving us this hour long of his time. But two more questions. One from Conroy Zien, who's he's a program director of first-time marathoners with MCRC. So he works with a lot of beginner runners. So he asks, what is the single most important piece of advice you would give to someone who is a beginner or beginning runner?
I stated one thing earlier: inch by inch is a cinch. All right. And so most beginners want to jump in and they want to run a marathon in 2 weeks. And you just want to give yourself a fair chance. Body adapts, and to get them thinking about, this is just a checkpoint in life. We want to make this a lifestyle. And that's where you're going to get the true benefits, making it a lifestyle. I think the second thing is that failing is okay. And this actually goes to Coach Bassi as well, that I tell my athletes, fail in everything they do, not just running, but fail often, fail hard, but fail forward. And it's so important that you adversity is healthy. But adversity doesn't have to define you. It really helps you to reveal who you are. It reveals that character in you. Even in running against the odds, I tell this story where I went into this big cross country race and I wanted to be top 10 my junior year. And I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to shorten it up a bit. I ended up getting 75th, got this measly old ribbon, and I was so dejected. And basically, I took that ribbon, I ended up taking that ribbon, I put it next to my light switch, and that became my motivation every single day. I had my goals on one side, and I would ask myself, what did I do today to get one step closer to my goals? And then on the other side was that light switch, was that ribbon. And the ribbon itself is what motivated me for the next 9 to 10 months to really hunker down and to really stay focused on the process, because a goal without a real plan is only a wish. And so I think that, failing forward, accepting failure, I think a lot of us have a really hard time accepting that. And then that creates even more stress because of this fear of failing. You got to have a positive relationship with failure. You got to be able to laugh at yourself when you fail or embarrass yourself. It's life. Everyone does it. Some people hide it better, but everyone goes through it. We all suck at something. And then as soon as you accept that, then you are going to enjoy that process a little bit more too.
You have so many great sayings. This is why you're an author. And
Yeah. Thank you.
last question. Someone asked, 25 years of coaching and teaching are two very stressful careers. What do you do to decompress?
I run. So yeah, I mean, running is still something that I do. I love playing basketball. I love lifting weights. Coaching is a hobby for me. I have actually left places because it became stressful, politics and all of those things. And I'm going to always keep coaching as a hobby. So, and that's the same thing with anyone here. If you're stressing every single day with your job and career, it's a perfect time to look to how you can reinvent yourself. And so, and it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And I mean, I still plan on doing some things, you know, I mean, I turned 50 this year, 50s, 60s, 70s. I mean, until my engine burns out. So I just think it's running is still in the forefront. And if I can't run, then I'm doing something aerobic like elliptical or biking. Not as fun, not as rewarding, but it does help.
Hope you keep running for a long time.
Yes.
Desmond, this was awesome. This was great. There are a lot of people in the chat who are resonating with your sayings, and I think one person already ordered your book. So
I really thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm gonna turn this over for closing statements for Yvette if she wants to jump on. But yeah, thank you so much. This was fantastic. This is recorded. I believe we'll post this somewhere.
Thank you.
But yeah, you know, I'm so glad you were able to take time with us.
No, I truly appreciate you all having me. And I mean, I'm still astonished by the fact that you have this this committee put together to make a difference. I appreciate it, and I hope others appreciate it as well.
Thank you. And Yvette.
Yeah. On behalf of the club, coach, and the INE committee, thank you very much for being with us this evening. I know that I feel the influence and the reach that you have had as a leader, and in particular as a Black leader. So thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you to Sylvie for centering the event tonight around the importance of Black History Month and Black History year round, particularly in the running community. Thank you very much, Jean, for your graciousness and welcoming everybody. And of course, Kellen for moderating the event and bringing Coach Dunham to us tonight. I just want to quickly, thank you for everyone who's staying. I just want to quickly just let folks know that we do have, let's see, I'm sharing my screen. We do have 2 copies that signed by Coach Dunham that we will be giving away randomly to MCRC members who have registered. So hopefully you registered and took the time to do that. And of course, you know, check out his book. It's really powerful, you know, as you can tell. So the other thing, I just wanted to really quickly, there's a few announcements from the club. Please check out our website. If you're not a member, please consider membership. Take a look at our great programs and races, in particular in the month of March. We have a variety of races to look out for of different distances. We have the Seneca Creek Greenway Trail Marathon and 50K in March. We have, we're hoping for, fingers crossed, piece of cake, which is a 10K. And then we have a 4-miler at the end of the month of March. So that's the wonderful thing about the club. You know, we have we try to meet as many different types of runners and distances as we can. And having said that, Sylvia already did a wonderful job talking up the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Coach Dunham talked about the importance of leadership. And in order for us to really center and embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in the club, we need your help. So if you're interested in being a leader in that way, please join the committee. You can contact us at diversity at mcrrc.org, mcrrc.org. And that's all I have. Thank you very much, everyone. It's really a wonderful evening and a wonderful event.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
that's us. Have a good night. I'll stop recording now.